age of the earth, and so he has a resource book back there. Tonight he's going to be talking about other stuff, and then tomorrow night is the dinosaurs, and he has two resources back there on the table, Dinosaurs, Dragons, in the Bible, and then the presentation is also on a thumb drive, and this will be back on the table. So I'm going to pray, and then we'll jump in. Lord, thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to grow and learn more about what the Bible says, because it's always true. And Lord, I just pray that you'll be with us tonight and this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, sure. We did talk a little bit about the age of the earth last night. For instance, it's so easy for somebody to remember there's only 4,500 years worth of mud at the mouth of all the major rivers. That's easy. However, there's much more. And we actually have 2 complete videos. We've got some books that all deal with these issues. And I just want to, again, stress we're going to take a look at some simple, easy to remember things. This is not complicated at all. And why do we want to even talk about it? Because the age of the earth, the age of the universe is not the salvation issue. And I want to make that completely clear. However, it does significantly impact the gospel. And the age of the universe is actually the single most important issue we could talk about scientifically concerning creation or evolution. After all, think with me, if, and I did say if, the earth and the universe are old, would that make evolution true?
No.
That wouldn't make it true. It would say maybe it would have been possible, but it wouldn't make it true, correct? But if the earth and the universe are young, then no theory of evolution could possibly be true, correct? And the other video, this one is why I believe in young creation. We won't go through all of the material tonight on this one. I'll stop short for sake of time. But we do have another one, and they're both full of these simple, easy to remember things. The reason I kind of chuckled was the title of the other one. You see, I was once asked to write an article for a Christian magazine. And when you get asked to write an article, sometimes people will give you the title and ask you to write the article. Or sometimes they'll just say, pick your own title and write your own article. Well, in this particular occasion, they actually did give me the title and asked me to write the article, and the title was to be, How Do You Date a Rock? And my first response was, first you have to ask her. And that's the title of the other video, and that's why. It's how do you date a rock? But think with me, is there anything about a rock that will tell you how old it is? Is there anything about the size, feel, shape, smell, taste, weight, specific gravity, chemical composition? Is there anything about a rock that will tell you how old it is? The answer, of course, is no. There's nothing about a rock that will tell you how old it is. I can go out right now, and you know I can find a rock real easy, and I could pick it up, and I could claim any age I want to for it. Now, you might disagree with me, but you could not scientifically prove that I'm wrong. I mean, I could just pick up anyone, claim any age I want to. You might disagree with me, but you could not scientifically prove I'm wrong. I mean, after all, when you pick up rocks, so they come with little white strings, little white tags attached saying, I'm 10 million years old and signed by a scientist who was there at the time. Right? You know, when people tell you, well, you know, this happened 100 million years ago and this happened 500 million, you know, evolutionists love to do that. You know, the first question you ought to ask them, were you there? How do you know that? And what you find out is they don't know it. They're relying on somebody who told them. And then you ask that person, well, they rely on somebody who told them. And it's just a continuous regression. But nobody actually knew. They just said, well, I believe it's this old, and it just gets perpetuated. So if you think about it, there's nothing about a rock that will tell you how old it is. And, well, excuse me, why are you not behaving here? Okay. Hang on a second here. Welcome to the electronic ministry. I was doing an hour-long presentation on a Q&A program, as a matter of fact. I think now maybe, yes.
Yeah, hold your mouth. You're not holding your mouth.
Yeah, I was putting my tongue in the right place. I was doing an hour-long Q&A program out of London. It's actually night there this afternoon. 45 minutes into a 60-minute program, the internet stopped completely. Had to reconnect. Anyway, so again, rocks don't come with little strings attached, etc., right? And there's nothing about a rock that will hold this. And let's just take a little look. Now, there's a rock that we found not too long ago. Did he come with a little white string and a little white tag attached saying how old it is? No. Well, how do we know how old it is? Or can we determine a way? And so what we're going to be looking at tonight is quite simple. Are the Earth and the universe billions of years old, as evolutionists claim, or are they in fact young? Now, you know my opinion. I believe it's 6,000. And what do I do today? 6,025 years ago? It's a lot easier to say 6,000 years ago in the year 2000. But young. And let's think about this for just a moment. You know, is the Earth old? And did it all start with something called a Big Bang? Now, you all have heard about that thing called the Big Bang. Is that correct?
Yeah.
There's a program about that.
Now, it's been disproven. Even evolutionists have disproven the Big Bang. And if you don't believe me, you can come to my website. There's an article there where I quote evolutionists. And even they admit the Big Bang is as dead as a doornail. They no longer believe it at the upper levels. Now, you'll still find science teachers in high school who teach it because they don't stay up with current research. They just repeat what they were taught. But evolutionists at the highest level have now abandoned the Big Bang. It's got too many problems they can't fix. And so they don't believe it anymore. But I have a logical question that you don't have to know anything about science to answer. When was the last time you saw an explosion construct a building? Excuse me? Was that too fast? I mean, when was the last time you saw an explosion construct a building? No? Explosions destruct, they do not construct, correct? And the whole idea of a Big Bang, you have to remember, first of all, it's only about 100 years old. It was never proven. Recently it was disproven. And so the whole idea has been basically abandoned. But when evolutionists do talk about the age of the universe and so forth, they say, well, that whatever mechanism, Big Bang or not, but that the universe is 13.82 billion years old. You have to understand something, though. A couple of years ago, they said it was 13.7. And what happens? Every time we put up some new instrument that we can see further back in time, according to them, actually it's not, it's just further in distance, they'll make the universe older. Now, we just put up the Webb satellite. I'm sure you're impressed. It's a throwaway, one-time use satellite that costs $10 billion, and we can't refuel it. It's going to die. But it sees farther than the Hubble. Now, the Hubble was a great piece of equipment. It's still working, by the way, although not for long. But it's not back in time. They're simply seeing further in distance. But every time they do that, they simply make the universe older. And I can assure you, with the new Webb satellite now up, we're seeing things they've never seen before. And the evolutionist lives and dies by 8 words. And the 8 words are, give me enough time and anything can happen. It doesn't matter what you show them that evolution is not true. They will have this knee-jerk reaction, well, give me enough time and anything can happen. And so, simply because we see new things, then they have to add times to say, well, this came about by random chance. They have a God, the God of random chance. But I can assure you that in a year or two, they are not going to say the universe is 13.82 billion years old. They're going to say it's 14.7 or 15.5 or something. And they're just going to keep making it older. The farther we can see, the older they say it is. Now, oh, by the way, do you know why they put the 2 on there? 13.82, is to make you think they actually measured it. But is that true, or can you really trust the Bible when it says this, the whole thing was spoken into existence only about 6,000 years ago? That's what we're looking at tonight. Now, I know what's going to happen when you tell somebody, I believe it's only 6,000 years old. Will you say that to somebody you know? And what's their immediate reaction when you say that you believe in a younger? And then they're going to say, but wait, you can't possibly believe that's true. And then what are they going to do? They're going to say, doesn't it have to be old because? Now, it depends on who you talk to. It depends on their education, interests, but they're going to give you a litany of reasons why they think it's old. And I just want to say that this list of theirs might be longer, shorter, might have different items on it, but they're going to say something like this. Doesn't it have to be old because? And then they're going to say, doesn't it take millions and billions of years for rocks to form? No. You can see rocks form in front of your face if you're in the right place. Or doesn't it take gemstones like diamonds and others to millions of years? I mean, would you agree with me? If you go into a jewelry shop, that's one of the things about buying a diamond. Why does it cost so much? And then they romance the stone. And they'll say, well, it's 10 million years old. And because of that, you're supposed to pay more, right? Hello? That's what they call romancing the stone. Fact of the matter is, it doesn't take millions of years. Or they're going to say, what about stalactites, stalagmites? Now, I'm sorry, I know you have limestone caves in Ohio and West Virginia here. I don't remember which ones they are. I have to go to like Mammoth in Kentucky. But I'm sure you're familiar with limestone caves, stalactites, stalagmites. Probably did some school trips or something to see them. But they say, doesn't that take millions of years to happen? Or what about polar ice caps? Now, we have a presentation of there's absolutely no truth whatsoever to global warming, global cooling, climate change being caused by humans. God is in charge of the weather.
Amen.
But nonetheless, in there, and tonight, we will take a look at polar ice caps, because they say, Igor, that's my pet name for Al Gore. He says it takes millions of years to get polar ice caps. It's not true, and we're going to show you that tonight. Or what about thousands of feet of sedimentary layers or wet mud layers to form into a rock? What about deep canyons to be cut into the rock? Now, you've got canyons around here, surely. And think about it. Take a look at your canyons. Do they have straight sidewalls or V-shaped sidewalls? Because V's are cut slow. Square canyons are cut fast. As a matter of fact, we have a presentation there on Mount St. Helens. During the 7th major eruption on March 19, 1982, we saw a canyon 1/40th the size of the Grand Canyon form in one day. It does not take a long time to get canyons. And what about dinosaur fossils? Now, I haven't really stressed this yesterday, but we're going to talk about dinosaurs tomorrow. And I used to be an evolutionary teacher, but it's worse than that. I grew up on the campus at the University of California, Berkeley.
Oh.
Thank you. Me too. But it's worse than that. You see, as a child in elementary school, I used to spend my time in the paleontology laboratories at Cal Berkeley, learning about dinosaurs, fossils, and evolutionary theory from PhDs when I was only in elementary school. And it's worse than that, because when I got to be only 8 years old, 3rd grade, they used to borrow me from one class to the other, and I was teaching the other children about dinosaurs, fossils, evolutionary theory, because I knew more about it than the teacher did. And that's absolutely true. But don't they tell you it takes millions of years to get a dinosaur fossil? Or in this area, certainly you're familiar with coal, and they'll say, oh, well, most of the coal on the earth formed during what they call the Carboniferous period, 300 to 360 million supposed years ago, broken into the Pennsylvania period, so on. But is that true? Or did all those trees come from a worldwide flood, like we discussed last night? Well, fossilized wood, same thing. And this is the one that they think is a killer. They think, doesn't it take millions and billions of years for light to travel here from distant stars, distant galaxies? And they think that's a killer. They think that proves everything's old. The fact of the matter is, it's not. It's not a killer at all. And the speed of light is our friend, it is not our enemy. And so let's just start taking a look. You know, I say it all has to be young, but I say it all has to be young because. Now, chose this instead of the other presentation for tonight because I wanted to start with something that would appeal to the ladies. So, ladies, are you here? Ladies?
Yes, yes.
Come on, ladies, I'm here. I'm trying to help you.
We're here.
And I'm expecting your support, okay?
Okay.
So, ladies, how many of you like the bling?
Oh, yeah.
Two ladies knew what that was and said, oh, yeah. For those of you that are not familiar with the term, the bling, that's the new slang term for shiny stones, like diamonds. Well, let's start taking a look. Does it really take millions of years to get gemstones? Now, this is a natural opal from Australia, mined by hand. I think you'll agree that is a right pretty rock. Agree, ladies?
Very pretty.
Remember, I'm here trying to help you. Oh. Now, evolution will tell you that takes millions of years to form in the ground. They are slightly fragile, so they have to be mined by hand. You don't use machines. However, that opal is not man-made. That opal is man-grown. You see, it grew in that jar right there. Funny, usually the question I hear immediately is, what's the formula? But let me show you. You see, again, we're going to take a look at, does it take millions of years to get diamonds and other gemstones? Now, that is another natural opal mined by hand from Australia. Again, I think you'll agree that's really pretty. But that is a man-grown opal. Chemically, you cannot tell them apart. Yet it was grown in that jar. You can actually see the lens there where it's growing, and it only took 3 months.
Wow.
So it doesn't take millions of years to get an opal. Okay, remember, I like response. The correct response tonight from now on is not a chance. So does it take millions of years to get an opal?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Now, do any ladies here have opal jewelry? Any ladies here? One hand has opal. Men, are you noticing only one hand was raised?
I have one, but not on my hand or with me.
Well, but you own it. Okay, so 2 ladies have opal jewelry. And I want to assure you, it's real, okay? This is an experiment done by a Christian creation-believing scientist. He doesn't make them and then sell them on the market, okay? But this is a scientific experiment to prove if you take the right chemicals, put them in a jar, stick them on a shelf, you can grow an opal in 3 months. It doesn't take millions of years. Apparently you're not interested in opals. How about diamonds? Oh, come on, ladies, that's a really pretty rock.
That is really pretty.
It's funny, too, because of the theft in the Louvre in Paris just recently. At one time, that was owned by Louis XIV, but today it's at the Smithsonian. So it was not part of the robbery. But evolutionists will tell you that it takes millions and millions of years for diamonds to form deep inside the earth and to rise slowly up to the ground where we find them. But that's not true, and you know it's not true already. Because you already know that since 1953, we've been able to make man-made diamonds. Now, they're not gem quality, they're industrial grade diamonds, but they're real diamonds, and we've been able to make them since 1953, so you know it doesn't take millions of years, right? But how many of you do know that in the year 2003, we started making pure man-made gem quality diamonds in a matter of minutes? Oh yes. The problem is that in order to make them in a matter of minutes, it took tremendous temperatures and very high pressures. Now this, believe me, you'll notice I have the actual citations. This comes from Nature magazine. That's the single highest scientific journal in the world for evolutionists. I'm not afraid to quote evolutionists. They find lots of stuff that proves creation. But that was 2003, and it just took a matter of minutes. But if you know anything about a scientist, you know that once we learn how to do something, the next two things that we want to know is how do you do it cheaper, faster, or both. Is that correct? The very next year, we started making gem quality diamonds in only 12 hours, but at much lower temperatures and pressures. This published in New Scientist, which is a very vitriolic evolutionary journal, but again, an evolutionary source. Well, that was only 1 year later. But if you know anything about a scientist, you know that once I learn how to do something, the next two questions are, how you do it cheaper, faster, or both, correct? In the year 2006, we started making gem quality diamonds up to 10 carats in size in only 1 day. This was published in an offspring of Nature magazine. Now, does it take millions of years to get a diamond? See, you forgot the answer already. Remember?
No way.
Not a
Not a
chance. Now, first of all, I'm not here selling, I'm not here promoting. I'm not sure if there's a jewelry shop in Parkersburg, but I suspect there might be one. But if you do go certainly to a larger city, today you can go into a jewelry shop, and gentlemen, are you listening? You can go into a jewelry store and you can buy a natural diamond or a man-made diamond of equal quality, and the man-made diamond will be 15 to 50% cheaper. And are you listening? I can assure you the ladies are listening. And I'm here, ladies, to help you. I mean, there's, birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas. How am I doing?
Can you hear the wife saying, cheapskate?
Hey, I'm Scottish. We define the word frugal. Well, guys, I hope you were listening, because I would not share this information with the ladies unless I had something that will help you. Okay, so guys, now are you listening? Because you see, back in the year 2015, we found out how to make real diamonds in only 8 hours with no pressure and only the heat of an oxyacetylene torch, the kind you use in a body shop. How you doing? Just thought I'd help you. And what about gold? I mean, you hear an awful lot about gold these days, don't you? What's one of the reasons the price keeps going up? Because they keep selling you on buying it. It's just supply and demand.
Yeah.
But they will tell you it takes millions of years to get gold. And I want to stop for just a second and say this. I don't ask trick questions. Did you hear that? I do not ask trick questions. Here's the question. How many of you would like to be worth $1 billion tomorrow?
Me?
I thought I'd see every hand, but I didn't. Apparently, some of you don't.
You know how to.
And I'm sure Pastor would like you to tithe on it. You get a big,
But you already told us we're priceless, so we're waiting on that.
That's right. We are priceless.
True. Well, I don't ask trick questions. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. And I'm serious. You will be worth $1 billion tomorrow. This is what you do. You raise a child or a grandchild that can figure out how to get the gold out of seawater, and you'll be worth $1 billion tomorrow. There's enough gold dissolved in the oceans of the world to make every one of you $1 billion many times over. The problem is nobody has ever figured how to get it out. But if you can come up with a method to get it out of seawater, you'll be worth $1 billion the next day, and I guarantee it. And besides that, evolution will tell you it takes, well, millions of years to make a gold deposit. But is that true? Now, in the video, I haven't had time to redo it. Not the example I'm about to share with you, but I have an example on the video showing that the massive gold deposit at Lahore, Papua New Guinea, could have formed in as little as 5 hours. That's research done by evolutionary scientists going back to 1985. But I got a new one for you. That's 5 hours, right? But we now know that earthquakes create gold deposits instantaneously. Remember the gold dissolved in seawater? Well, there's gold dissolved in groundwater too. And when an earthquake happens, there's friction between the land as it rubs up against each other. The heat evaporates the water and deposits the gold. And you can get a gold seam in a matter of tenths of a second. It doesn't take millions of years to get gold deposits. And what about those stalactites and stalagmites? I mean, you agree, you've been to some of them maybe on school trips or something like that, right?
Yep.
Now, may I ask, what are the most local caves around here?
Smoke hole, probably.
I'm sorry?
Smoke hole, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably closest. No cold.
But you got caverns anyway. And you did go to see them at some point, I'm sure. So, let me ask you just a question. When they took you to those caves, or you went out yourself, and you got to the entrance of the cave, and there was a guide, and he said something like this: you know, it takes 10, 20 million years to get a cave like this. Come on, folks, the correct response there was, ooh. So we're going to try this again. You know, it takes 10, 20 million years to get a cave like this.
Ooh. Not a chance.
And,
Oh.
and the second thing they say is, don't touch that!
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, we break it off.
It'll take 1,000 years to grow back. Well, let's just see if that's really true. Now, I'm going to show you 2 examples, but we're going to be taking a look at, does it take millions of years for stalactites, stalagmites to form?
Thank you.
That photograph comes from the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. The Yucatan is a limestone formation with thousands and thousands of limestone caves. But notice here we have 2 man-made pieces of pottery. Now this is dated as Mayan because that's the people that occupied the Yucatan. And we know that this pottery was made about 1,300 years ago. It's not terribly difficult to figure that out. But I wondered if you happen to notice this. Now this is a stalagmite growing on top of this man-made pottery, but this only took about 1,300 years. So does it really take millions of years to get a limestone cave? Come on, now the answer is?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Come on now. And one more example, just to prove it. This comes from Australia. This is a man-made cave, or technically it's a man-made tunnel, but it was cut into a basaltic hill in Australia in 1857. We know exactly when it was cut. And yet, here in this picture, which was taken in 1997, here we see beautiful flow stones. Here we see curtain stalactites up here. Formations that maybe look familiar to things you might have seen, is that correct? But think with me, all of this formed in only 140 years. So does it take millions of years to get a limestone cave?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Come on, say it loud, say it proud. I do have a third question though. If you've ever been to these caves, you've seen what are called, probably at least, you've probably seen what they call columns. And a column is where a stalactite and a stalagmite form and touch and form a column. I didn't know it till I got there, but inside the Rock of Gibraltar is a limestone cave. It has formations of limestone. But I've got a question for you. There are columns there. Have you ever gone to a limestone cave, seen a column like that that was broken? Did you ever see a column that was broken? Because remember, land is constantly moving. The land here is constantly moving. Now it's very slight, but it's constantly moving. And so once a column forms, the land eventually is going to move and the column should snap. I've never seen one, which proves they're all young. And there's not been enough time for that movement. And let's talk about the polar ice caps. Now, again, the evolutionists like Al Gore, say it takes millions of years to get a polar ice cap. Now remember, the polar ice cap in the north is just ice floating on water. And it melts in the summer and reforms in the winter. It's only a few feet thick and all that sort of thing. But in Antarctica, we actually have a continent. Now there's so much ice on the continent of Antarctica, the weight of the ice actually pushes the entire continent down. Now, evolution would say it takes millions of years for that polar ice cap to form. Now, as a matter of fact, at what's called the Vostok hole. Now, that's a Russian team of scientists who drilled all the way through the Antarctic ice cap. Vostok is the Russian word for east. So the Vostok hole means the east hole. Vladivostok means Prince of the East. That's the great port on the Pacific. And, well, they say that they drilled down and they found 400,000 layers in the ice. That as they went through the core, they found 400,000 layers. Now, a French and Italian group at what is called the Dome Sea drill, they say they drilled all the way down through the Antarctic polar ice cap and counted 800,000 layers. Now, then they deceive you and they say each one of those represents a year. Just like tree rings, right? That every line represents a year, just like tree rings, right? Now, first of all, how many of you have ever gone into your kitchen, opened up the freezer and seen 2 ice cubes melting together in the freezer? Because ice sublimes, correct? Ice flows even in a frozen state, correct? Now, it is absolutely true. As you start drilling through the top of the polar ice caps, you will see lines in the ice. That's true. But as you get into the middle, the weight of the ice on top becomes so massive, it squeezes those lines out to where they are invisible. So they extrapolated the rest. They didn't count them. But another thing too, they say that those lines are like tree rings, that you can count them and see how old the polar ice cap is. When I was an evolutionist, I believed that. I don't believe it anymore, and there's a good reason. I'd like all of you to kind of come back in your minds, because I don't think any of you are old enough to remember. But come back with me in your minds to World War II, specifically 1942. In 1942, 2 Boeing 17 Liberator bombers and 6 Lockheed P-38 Lightning fighters took off from the United States to go to Europe to be a part of the war effort. Now, they don't have enough fuel to fly across the Atlantic. We didn't have mid-air refueling in those days. And so they didn't have enough fuel to fly across the Atlantic. And if you cannot fly across the Atlantic, what must you do? You have to fly around the Atlantic. And how do you do that? Well, you simply fly to Bangor, Maine, fuel up. Fly to Labrador, fly to the southwest corner of Greenland. You fuel up, you fly across the polar ice cap in Greenland. By the way, American scientists have drilled all the way through the polar ice cap on Greenland. And when they got to the bottom, do you know what they found? Leaf litter and dead insects. At one time, Greenland was green. Hello. But they flew over the polar ice cap of Greenland. They were on their way to Iceland, because you go to Iceland, you fuel up, you keep going, eventually you'll get to England. Well, they fueled up, went over the polar ice cap of Greenland, got out over the water, heading to Iceland, and they ran into a whiteout blizzard. Anybody here familiar with a whiteout blizzard? One person. Well, I certainly too. I certainly am. And what is a whiteout blizzard? That's when it's snowing so hard you can't see the front end of the car while you're driving. Well, they couldn't land in Iceland. They had to turn around and go back. Didn't have enough fuel to get back. So they have only 2 choices. They can either, well, land in the water and die in 5 minutes, a la Titanic, or they can land on a glacier in Greenland. And I'll bet you know which one they did. Now, the first plane went in with the wheels down, When it hit the glacier, the plane flipped over. And any pilot will tell you that's a bad landing. Well, the other 7 planes landed with their wheels up. They just belly landed on the ice. The planes were damaged. I will tell you, it took 9 days to rescue the crews, but nobody was lost. They all survived. But the planes were simply left there. It was faster to make new ones than try to pick them up and take them home and repair them. They just left them there. Well, that's 1942. 46 years later, 1988, a couple of men over in Kentucky remembered that those planes were still there, and today they are valuable. Even damaged, they're valuable. There's a lot of money in antique military aircraft because there's so few of them around. And so they decided to go and get those planes. It was a good money-making venture. And the evolution says those little lines you see in the ice, in the Antarctic ice cap, represent years, correct? Now, it's been 46 years. When they found the planes, how much ice and snow did they find on top of the planes? Please tell me. We'll take an auction. It's only been 46 years. I wish to say that's a year. So how much ice and snow did they find on top? Oh, by the way, the planes don't sink into the ice. Where they landed is where they stayed. But how much ice and snow did they find on top of the planes?
How much did it snow?
Well, that's a valid question, but I'm not going to answer that question. You have to figure that out for yourself. But if each of those lines is supposed to represent a year, and they said those lines add up 800,000 years, well, how much ice and snow did they find on top of planes after 46?
46 layers.
And how thick? Yeah, come on, I'm taking an auction. Anybody? Opening bid? No?
Well, it depends on how much it snowed.
Oh, it says 46 inches.
Okay, we have an opening bid of 46 inches.
I'll say 46 feet.
I have a second bid of 46. You are a woman of great faith, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
That's all right. So I have a bid of 46 inches, now 46 feet. Do I have a third bid? Anybody?
Probably
Going
3 or 4
once, going
times.
twice?
Probably 3 or 4 times that the tallest.
Nobody? Well, actually, they found 250 feet.
Oh, yeah.
They found 250 feet of ice and snow on top of the planes, but the planes didn't move. In only 46 years, that's how much ice and snow had formed on top of the planes. Let me show you. This is the photograph of a P-38, 250 feet below the surface. You see, when they got to Greenland, they knew where the planes ought to be, but they couldn't find them. So they got ice-penetrating radar, found the planes 240 to 270 feet below the surface. They had to come back and get equipment that would not drill, melt a hole through the ice that big. And they melted down to this plane. Then they melted out around the plane in order to take this picture. Now that particular plane was in such good condition, they disassembled her, brought her up the hole, brought her back to Kentucky, reassembled her, and today she's flying.
Wow.
Got a great nickname. It's Glacier Girl. But let's just do a little simple arithmetic. Think with me. It took 46 years for 250 feet of ice and snow to form on top of the plains. That's an average of 5.4 foot per year. At that rate, you would get the entire Antarctic ice cap in only a couple of thousand years. It doesn't take millions of years. And I have a question. I grew up in California in the Sierra Mountains. And in the Sierras, we plow. We don't salt the roads. Now, in West Virginia, you at least have areas where you do plow. Is that correct? Right? Well, let me ask you a question. When they plow the roads after each snowfall, isn't that what it looks like along the side of the road? That particular picture was taken in Siberia, but nonetheless, it looks like that, correct?
Yes.
Well, think with me. All you have to do is compress that, and it looks just like the lines in the polar ice caps. And I said that that plane was flying, and I wasn't kidding. I was teaching up in Bangor back in 14, And I didn't know she'd be there, but it just so happened that Glacier Girl was making a visit. Today she looks like that. I have 6 pictures of her. I think she's absolutely gorgeous. But she's one of the few flying P-38s in the world today. So I guess it doesn't take, well, hundreds of thousands of years to get a Polaroid cap, right? Thank you. And let's talk about what's called radiometric dating processes. I had a question on this in the program in England this afternoon. But what does radiometric, what does that word mean? Because if I use a word I think you don't know what it might mean, I want to define it. But does radiometric dating prove that rocks are millions, billions of years old? Now, the word radiometric refers to the use of the decay of radioactive materials to supposedly measure the amount of time since a creature lived or an event occurred. So the radio comes from radioactive, the metric measurement. And so radiometric techniques, and you've all heard of carbon-14. That's one of them. But there's others, uranium, lead, potassium, argon, rubidium, strontium. There's a variety of these methods. But none of them work. None of them work. Because all of them start with 6 fatal false assumptions. Carbon-14 is much worse. It has 20 fatal false assumptions. I have a whole hour over here on 14, another whole hour on potassium argon, showing legitimate photographs of what's been found, contradicting the process, contradicting the times. But the only thing carbon-14 is actually good for is showing that the Earth is young. It's the only thing it's good for. And why do I say that? Well, carbon-14 has a half-life of 5,730 years. So every 5,730 years, half of what you originally had will disappear. Another 5,730 years, you're down to a quarter. Well, that means if you think going back in time, what would happen? Well, we know the decay rate, we know the current conditions, but you don't know the starting conditions. You can't possibly get a reliable date unless you know the starting conditions. This is just one of the 6 fatal flaws in all of them. But think with me, this half-life of 5,730 years. Now, we don't have equipment that will actually measure carbon-14 in the ground more than 17 1/2 half-lives. Now, what that means is about 104,000 years. But we cannot find any carbon, no coal, no oil, no natural gas, no carbonaceous clays. We can find no carbon deposit in the world that does not have significant measurable carbon-14. Now that means that all that coal in West Virginia and Ohio cannot be 300 to 360 million years old because it's all got carbon-14 in it. Meaning it has to be less than 100,000 years old and significantly less than 100,000 years old. So carbon-14 is our friend, but it's absolutely useless to date anything. And let me ask you a question. If these various methods did work, and I said if, well, then if you use 2 different methods on the same rock, shouldn't you get approximately the same result? This is a little think question, okay? So if they did work, 2 different methods, and they did work, and you use it on the same rock, you should get approximately the same result, correct? And I'm not saying it should be perfect, but approximately, right? So, oh, I know. Lots of people feel the way about this too. But think with me. So, would you agree if they worked, you would expect them to be at least within, say, 5% of each other, the result?
Sure.
Yeah, 2, yes. Apparently you want to negotiate. What about if they were within 10% of each other? They would appear to maybe possibly work. Well, you've already agreed to 5.
Say yes.
Oh,
She's a little more lenient than I am. So.
now we're up to 3 people. Apparently you really do want to negotiate. How about 15%? Would you settle for that? Apparently you've already seen the problem. there are tremendous contradictions between two different methods used on the same rock. Let me show you just 3 examples. Now, if you were here last night, this is going to help you too. But the first example, this is Sunset Crater National Monument in Arizona. If you ever go to the Grand Canyon, you go up to see the east end, you will go past the entrance. It's a beautiful spot, highly recommend at least taking a look at it. This is a volcano that's actually not quite big, but it's a little volcano. And the cinders at the top at sunset just glow, and that's where the name Sunset Crater comes from. Now, if you know anything about the Southwest, you know that there have been native Indians there for 4,000 years. Now, this volcano erupted approximately 900 years ago, not that difficult. But we know that there were, in fact, Native American Indians there because in some of the cinder cones and lava flows from that eruption, we have actually found Native Indian artifacts. So we know they were there, right? As a matter of fact, if you go in, as you drive in, you can actually see the foundations of ancient Indian homes. And if you go out trails to the east, you can actually see cave dwellings, right? Now, when you talk about how evolutionists would date volcanic materials, they would use the potassium argon method. So that's what you use on volcanic materials. So we took some samples from this eruption that occurred about 900 years ago and sent them to a lab that specializes in potassium argon dates. They came back and told us that this material, which is roughly 900 years old, was, according to them, 210 to 230,000 years old. I don't know about you, I think that's more than 15%, don't you? And here's another example. This comes from Australia, but here again is another piece of volcanic rock, but inside is a piece of wood. Now, on the east coast of Australia, there are volcanoes. This volcano erupted, the lava came down the side of the volcano, and, well, it went around trees, killing live standing trees. But it also surrounded pieces of dry, dead wood on the forest floor. Now, there's no possibility of contamination because the rock completely surrounded the wood. In addition, the heat of the rock caused the wood to turn into charcoal. And so, this is charcoal, and this is volcanic rock, right? Now, that means we can use the carbon-14 method on the wood, or now carbon, and the potassium argon method on the rock, correct? Now, I don't agree with these dates at all. You know my opinion. But according to the lab that dated the carbon-14 in the charcoal, they said this was 45,000 years old. I don't agree with that, but that's what they said, right? The lab that did the potassium argon date on the rock said that the rock was 44 million years old.
Wow. Not a chance.
Thank you, my dear. Well said and well worth saying. You start to see the contradictions? These methods don't work. But I have a third, the last one, and I said if you were here last night, it'll really help. We're going to go to 1801, the big island of Hawaii, and there was a major eruption. Now, I do want to say I'm not a proud guy, but I would like you to take a little appreciation of the difficulty in making some of these slides, okay? Now, here, this is a drawing showing volcanoes underwater and volcanoes sticking out of the water. That's the Hawaiian Islands, for instance. Now, last night I didn't have time to say this, but on the floor of the North Pacific, north of the equator in the Pacific, there are 20,000 volcanoes that don't come out of the water. But some of them do, like the Hawaiian Islands, right? So last night you did see this. So let's assume that this represents now our Hawaiian Island. In 1801, there was an eruption. Apparently you missed it. Come on, folks, the correct response here is, So, are you ready? In 1801, there was an eruption.
Wow.
That's better. Now, there were obviously people there to document it. But in this particular case, remember that the volcanoes of the Hawaiian Islands are not known for their massive explosion, they're known for their massive lava flows. And if you've been watching the news this year, PillowA has been just pumping out hot rock all year. So the White Islands are known for lava flow, not big explosion. This particular eruption went all the way from the top of the volcano, down the side of the volcano, into the ocean, all the way down the side of the volcano to the ocean floor, 2.6 miles down. It is just one continuous flow. Now, we got this bright idea a few years ago. Let's take a robot and follow the lava flow down, which you can do, and stop occasionally and take some samples, and then date them according to the potassium argon method and just see what we get. Now, we know this happened 224 years ago. We know it, right? So we sent the robot down 0.8 of a mile and came back with a potassium argon method showing it was 0 million years old. Now, technically, that's correct, because carbon-14 breaks down very, very fast. But potassium argon is very, very slow. Now, if this material is only 224 years old, well, 0 million would be right, because you can't use it on hundreds and thousands. Okay? So we said, well, let's send it down 2 miles. We sent it down 2 miles, came back with a potassium argon date of 12 million years old. We said, well, that's interesting. Let's send it all the way down 2.6 miles. We sent it down 2.6 miles, came back and got a potassium argon date of 21 million years old. For material we know is 224 years old. Anybody notice these things don't work? And I would say again, any knowledgeable evolutionist knows it. And they don't use these methods to date rocks. And what about coal? Now, I do think, again, you know a little bit about coal around here. You all are familiar with the expression around here?
Yes.
Good. This happens to come from Michigan, this photograph, but here you see about a 2-foot thick layer of pure anthracite coal. And anthracite coal is the densest, blackest, bestest coal there is. It's the really good stuff. But you only find coal, oil, natural gas between layers of sedimentary rock. And remember, sedimentary rock is just dried out mud. So you always find coal, oil, natural gas between layers of dried out mud. And in that photograph, you can see the layers here and here, correct? I mean, you can see them. Now, anybody in West Virginia knows anything about coal formation will tell you it takes 10 foot of dead plant and wood material, all in one place, all at one time, compressed down to 1 foot thick to get anthracite coal. What's the problem? You see, if you compress it only 2 to 1, 3 to 1, you get brown lignites. 5, 6 to 1, you'll get the medium grade bituminous coals. But you'd have to compress it 10 to 1 to get anthracite, right? What's the problem? Well, the problem is this. Out in Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado, we have pure layers of anthracite coal that are 200 and 300 foot thick. We're still mining the top one. We haven't even gotten to the bottom one yet. We've got enough coal out there for 300 years. But what does that tell you? It tells you at some time in the past, there had to be a layer of dead plant and wood material all in one place, all at one time without decay, 2,000 and 3,000 foot thick. And only a worldwide flood will do that. And you find the darndest things in coal. And I do mean that, the darndest things. In the dinosaur presentation I have over that just says dinosaurs, I have several other examples, but tonight I'll just show you one. You do find the darndest things in coal. For example, how about this dinner bell right here? Well, I'm calling it a dinner bell. It's the size of a dinner bell. That was found in 1944 in medium-grade bituminous coals in Upshur County, West Virginia. But according to evolutionists, more than 300 million years old.
Not a chance.
Thank you, my dear. Say it loud, say it, scream it to the rooftops, okay? I thought you might be particularly interested in that. But it is made out of a very unique alloy, unknown in manufacturing today. But somebody obviously knew how to make it. And if you turn the bell over 90 degrees and look inside, the clapper is made out of iron, but the bell is made out of a very unique metallic alloy. Now, if something is a fact, I will simply say it. If something is my personal opinion or personal speculation, I will always tell you. Now, I'm going to show you the top of the bell here. Well, I'm going to blow it up big, and I'm not trying to convince you. You make the decision for yourself. But when you take a look at the top of the bell, it looks like that. Now, in my opinion, this is a bell used in pagan worship prior to the flood, incorporated in vegetable debris during the flood that turned into coal. Except for those going to sleep, how are we doing? Hello?
Yeah.
You see, I need to stop and give you a little scientific advice, actually medical advice, I should say. You see, if you cross your arms like this, it cuts off the oxygen to your brain, and you're going to go to sleep. Now, this is a free piece, just a free piece of medical advice. Now, I say that this was used in pagan worship prior to the flood, and I don't speculate unless I have a good reason. You see, similar bells have also been found in Babylon and in India. So I think my speculation is on good ground. How about you? And how about fossils? Again, I grew up in the paleontology laboratories at Cal Berkeley, and they tell you it takes millions and millions of years to get a fossil, correct? Well, I used to believe that, used to teach it, don't anymore. I would like to show you my third most favorite fossil. Again, my first and second most favorite fossil are in the dinosaur video over there, but I would like to show you my third most favorite fossil. Now, you just don't show anybody your third most favorite fossil, so we're friends, right? Right?
Sure. Yeah, right.
Oh, don't give me that sure.
Who says that?
Absolutely. It's better than not a chance.
True.
Sure.
Well, okay, then I'll show you, this is my third most favorite fossil. This is the photograph of a fossil, Teddybearosaurus. Now this fossil, Teddybearosaurus, well, it formed in only 4 months. Would you like to see where it was fossilized?
Yes.
Okay, I'll show you. You see, that fossil teddy bear fossilized here. This is called the dripping or dropping well. It's on the River Nid in Yorkshire, England. That's the northeast corner of England. And up top, well, we have a mineral spring. And the mineral water flows over the top down to the river. But as it flows down, some of the water evaporates, leaving the mineral behind and leaving this stone waterfall here. And what have they done? Well, you'll notice they put hooks and a wire along the bottom here. People come along, stick things up there, come back 4 months later and collect them fossilized. Now, just notice how many teddy bears are in the process of being fossilized when this photograph was taken. Okay? So let's start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 23 teddy bears. Also, you'll notice we have a bell, a woman's purse, a teapot, a hat, another hat, a sausage, and a bell. And if any of you can tell me, I have never figured this out. A plastic lobster.
Why?
Why would you want to fossilize a plastic lobster?
Recycle the plastic.
And the teddy bear.
Well, that took 4 months. However, take a look at this photograph. Now, this is a photograph of a man-made piece of rope. This says it's from the Czech Republic right there. And this rope fossilized in only 2 weeks. Please tell me, is fossilization a rapid or slow process? It's rapid. I agree. Now, being here with the river and so forth, I'm going to ask a question. I won't call on you. how many fishermen and fisherwomen do we have here? You like to go fishing? And 1, 2, 3. Okay, the 3 of you are now my expert witnesses, okay? I'm going to show you a photograph. Would you agree that is a fossil fish? Do we agree?
Oh, looks like one.
I was just there a couple of months ago. This comes from the Santana Formation in northeastern Brazil. And I was just there. It's a world famous site for finding fossils. And I visited the museum there, had a good laugh. But according to the evolutionists who found this fossil fish, because of the condition of the fossil, he said, and I quote, that this fish fossilized in 5 hours or less. You see, this comes from the Santana Formation. We found fossil gills, fossil muscles, fossil stomachs. What he wrote was, quote, what is clear is that the fossilization process took place moments after the fish died and was completed within only a few, probably less than 5 hours, unquote. However, this evolutionist went on and wrote, in this case, quote, instantaneous fossilization, unquote, is suspected to have been the very cause of death. Did you just hear what I just said? He just said this fish died from the process of fossilization. Now, if you can die from the process of fossilization, is it a rapid or a slow process? It's rapid. As a matter of fact, in my book, I discuss this. It has to be rapid. Fossilization cannot be slow. It has to be fast. And I'm sure recently you've noticed the moon is moving away from the Earth, correct? Well, you have noticed that, right? Where are your powers of observation? The moon is moving away from the Earth at a staggeringly fast rate. Are you ready to be staggered?
Yes.
You know, y'all are not convincing.
Yes.
Ah, that's more convincing. Well, the moon is moving away at a staggeringly fast rate. The moon is moving away from the Earth at 1.5 inches a year. Come on, aren't you staggered?
That's why we noticed it so predominantly.
Exactly. I'm surprised. I know it sounds ridiculous to say it's 1.5 inches a year, but actually that's staggeringly fast. You just don't realize it. I want you to think about something. If the moon and the Earth are only 6,000 years old, as evolutionists, well, the Bible says it's only 6,000. They say it's 4.5 million. Is that right? But think with me. If it's only 6,000 years old, it's only moved 9,000 inches away. That's only 750 feet. Well, that's not very much in 239,000 miles average distance. But you don't have to believe me. All you need is a laptop computer. Just take the formula for the law of gravity. It's an inverse square law. And stick it in your laptop. Put the distance, 239,000 miles, that's the average distance. Put the mass of the moon, the mass of the Earth into the computer, hit enter, and go back in time and see what happens. Because if you do that, think with me, if it's moving away at 1.5 inches a year now, you go back 1 year, it's going to be 1.5 inches closer, right? But you keep going back in time. Remember, the law of gravity is inverse square. If you half the distance, you quadruple the force. And so as you start going back, what's going to happen? The force is going to start to increase. And that means the moon is going to come back towards the Earth faster and faster and faster, correct? And what is going to happen is the moon is going to spiral in and hit the Earth 1.4 billion supposed years ago. So let's think. Evolutionists say the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. If we bring the Earth and Moon in a position, the Moon comes back and would hit the Earth 1.4 billion years ago. That means that it was attached to the Earth for the first 3.6 billion years, and it's only been moving away for the last 1.4. Well, if you know anything about the law of gravity, if the Moon was here, it'd still be here. And there's a distance called the Roche, R-O-C-H-E distance. It's 11,500 miles. If the moon had ever been that close to the Earth, the moon would have been broken up into pieces and we would would have a ring and not a moon. And another thing too, what if we did allow the moon to come back in time? What is the major physical impact of the moon upon the Earth? Tides, thank you very much. I mean, I know in West Virginia, you don't think much about tides. I live in Orlando, Florida. We think a lot about tides.
Yeah.
I live on one of the highest pieces of property in Central Florida. It's 115 feet above sea level. You know,
Oh, wow.
we think a lot about tides. But if you let the moon come back towards the Earth, 1.5 billion years, what would happen? Well, of course, tide is the big thing, right? So if the moon starts coming back, what's going to happen? Well, as the moon starts coming back, the tides are going to get higher and higher, correct? You go back only 500 million years, the tide would rise 1 mile high twice a day. Now, just how high is Parkersburg above sea level? 650. I think
Yes.
it's probably a good number. I mean, close to it
That's about
anyway.
close.
I didn't bother to look it up, but I'd say that's probably true. So that would then beg the question: do you know how to breathe underwater?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Not a chance.
And how fast would the confidence erode with a tide that rises 1 mile high twice a day? But there's only 4,500 years from the mud at the mouth of the Mississippi. You see how this all starts to fit? And the last thing we'll talk about is starlight and time. Now, evolutionists will tell you that the speed of light is a constant. When you were taught in school, 186,000 miles per second, 300,000 kilometers per second. And remember, there's no such thing as the law of the speed of light. There's a law of gravity. There's no law of the speed of light. And you do have to get over just one hurdle to understand what I'm about to say. That one hurdle is this: a light year is not a time. A light year is a distance. It's the distance that light travels at the current speed of light as measured on Earth today. That's roughly 5.83 trillion miles. But we cannot measure the speed of light outside of the solar system. We've never been outside of the solar system. So first of all, how do we know what the speed of light is out there? Secondly, there are other things to consider. How long has it been since we actually did scientifically measure accurately the speed of light? Anybody know? Not a clue. Not a chance, but not a clue. Yeah.
Well, when they landed on the moon, didn't they check the speed, the distance?
No, it goes back much further than that. Most people actually think back to the Michelson experiments about 100 years ago, but even that's not back nearly far enough. We have accurately known the speed of light since 1676, when an astronomer named Oleg Romer measured it. We've known the speed of light for 350 years, and you know the interesting thing is, every time we measure it, it's getting slower. Now think with me for a moment. There's something called the second law of thermodynamics. It is a law that everything breaks down over time. Well, what would exempt light from slowing down over time? It is affected by the second law, therefore it should slow down over time. Isn't that correct? And there are other reasons too. Now, we've measured it, we know it's slowing down. And I would like to introduce you to a gentleman. His name is Dr. Sergeyevich Trotsky, right here. He lives in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia, which is my headquarters when I'm working in Russia. And based on his data, and he's not a creationist, but based on his good data, he says at one time in the past, the speed of light was 10 million times faster than today. Now, if the speed of light were 10 million times faster than today, it would cross the entire universe in 5,000 years. You start to see that there are reasons to understand this. And another thing too, and I'm just going to throw one more out and we'll close, but how many of you have been to a swimming pool or a clear creek, clear river, and you stuck something in the water, you know, like at the pool you stuck in a hook or something, and when you did, it appeared to bend, is that right? Now, you know the speed of light in water is slower than the speed of light in air. So the speed of light is dependent upon the medium through which it's passing. So faster in air, slower in water, because water's thicker, right? Now, scientists tell jokes about zero gravity, because any scientist would know there's no such thing as zero gravity. If you think about it, as a matter of fact, gravity is the perfect example in nature of how the Holy Spirit can be omnipresent. Because there is nowhere in the universe that gravity does not exist. So that's a physical way in which you can think about how the Holy Spirit can be omnipresent. But gravity is thicker in places and thinner in others. If you were between two galaxies, if you were standing between two galaxies, one would pull it towards it versus the other one very slowly. But people think about space as a true vacuum. Space is not a true vacuum. There's dust particles and gas molecules and space junk, meteorites, all that other stuff out there. Space is not a vacuum. And so, think with me, between galaxies, light could travel much, much faster because there's so little there to stop it. I mean, Einstein said that gravity would bend light. He couldn't prove it, but he said it would. Today we have proved it. We do know that gravity bends light, and we have thousands and thousands of pictures to prove it. We even use it as a research tool today. It's called gravitational lensing. But gravity does affect light. So think with me, between galaxies where there's very, very little gravity, microgravity, light could travel very, very quickly. But as it enters into a galaxy, well, the gravity of all the stars and planets would get thicker. And so the speed of light would start to slow down. When it comes into a solar system where there's more gravity, it's going to get thicker, and so the speed of light is going to slow down even further. And so you start to see that there are other arguments too. But simply because something is 13.82 billion light years away doesn't make it 13.82 billion years old. Hello?
Yeah.
Well, there's more, but we'll stop. I said we wouldn't take as long as last night. But I hope you see that there are really actually simple arguments to prove that it's all young. And it doesn't matter whether you look in the earth, on the earth, near the earth. I mean, the sun spins too fast. There's too much dust in the solar system. Large spiral galaxies, lumpy rings about planets. And that's just a start. As a matter of fact, if you go to my website, there's a place there, we look these free short videos. There's 450 of them there. Roughly half of them have various factoids, one or maybe two, proving that it's all young. It's also a great place to go if you've got insomnia. I'm serious, you got insomnia. You get on that website, you start looking at my Did You Know videos, and the newest one plays first, and then the older, there you go. And after 10, 15, you're out.
Thank you. Thanks for being here again tonight. I know this is a lot of information. Sometimes I think about these seminar things like this, like drinking out of a fire hydrant. But